Welcome to Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show. I am Kyle Anthony, and welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the prediction show for UFC on ESPN 9, Woodley versus Burns. We got a couple free plays that we're going to be talking about on this show. It has been a phenomenal year so far. Right now, crushing it at this point. My last 23 client plays, 20-3 in that span, 83% winner overall, and increased all my clients' bankrolls by 48%. So, been a great year, but again, gotta keep it going. It's great when things are going great, but again, you win, you gotta start looking at that next event, start capping it, because again, it's a great part of the sport. Really, it almost doesn't stop unless there's a pandemic. So, and even when there is one, we do have an event. So here we go again, another event coming up. I actually had 3 plays that I was going to be talking about on this show. One of them did get canceled this morning, Holland versus Rodriguez. I had a method of victory play there, and I actually really liked Holland in this spot. Again, the market moved here, so it's you know, we talk about this a lot too, where, you know, when you jump on a certain fighter, you know, when's a good time to get on him. And a client play we had not long ago was Holland at -105. He goes out there, decimates his opponent, gets us all paid, and then he comes into this spot as a -190. So you see what the market does, you see what happens there. Still like Holland, but I like the method of victory there more, looking for that knockout as a possibility to go out there and get that victory. Not big on Rodriguez overall, what he's done. No reason to really go into all of that. So we only do have 2 free plays on this card, main event, and I've got one more that I will be talking about. So I guess let's get into it. So the first thing we're going to talk about is the main event of the evening between Tyron Woodley and Gilbert Burns. Now, this is a great fight here. These two have been chirping a lot at each other over Twitter, kind of going at it. Burns has been asking for this fight. Woodley kind of seemed to be looking for maybe a bigger name. It seemed like that he was kind of looking to go after, but this fight ends up getting signed. It's happening this Saturday night. So right now we've got Woodley, he's a -184. You've got Gilbert Burns roughly around the +154 mark, somewhere around there. And again, we always like to do here, go down a couple fights, break down, see the paths to victory, and then see where it makes sense to place our bet if this is the spot. And I do feel like this is a pretty good spot to place our money. So first we're talking about is Tyron Woodley. We're going to get into him first. 3 fights ago, he fought Demian Maia. Now, this fight here with Demian Maia was very interesting because Maia, obviously, I mean, he has got the credentials, probably the best, you know, grappler, ground game, you know, in the history of the sport. Definitely on a downturn at this point in his career, but overall his credentials are there. And the thing about this fight, it was one hell of a boring fight. I mean, there was really nothing going on at this fight. A lot of it backing up, and that's something that you see with Woodley. And you're going to hear me talk about that a lot on the show here, because Woodley consistently backs up and really puts his legs up against the cage and then looks to lunge forward. And he almost likes that as in a way that it almost allows the opponent to feel, hey, I've got him cornered, and maybe they try something, you know, out of the ordinary, or maybe they're, you know, let their guard down a little bit and they're looking for strikes because he's up against the cage. And it's something that Woodley has done so much where I think it's taken a lot away from him. And in this spot here, we've got Demian Maia, who really does not have good striking, definitely a ground game, but Woodley has got some great wrestling. He's got strength as well. But the whole time, somebody like Maia walking you down, to me, is not a good sign. But you know, he goes out there and he, you know, stands on the outside in a very boring fight, lands a couple shots. You know, Maia kept pushing forward, kept trying to get some takedowns. Woodley wanted no part of that at all, so he kept kind of staying on the outside, moving around. But the limited output of Woodley was a big concern to me. And this is the first fight, you know, again, I've seen all these fights, but I love going back and rewatching all of them. And again, you just realize how low that volume is against a guy like Maia, again, who does not have the biggest striking credentials when it comes to that. Again, ground game is there. But even later on, you know, Woodley was chipping away and, you know, landed some shots and being on the outside. And even in that 4th and 5th round, very unimpressive from Woodley, because Woodley, again, you know, really just circled a lot. You know, crowd was booing. You know, even prior to this fight, you know, we fought Stephen Thompson twice, and those were pretty much the same kind of fight. And a lot of people said, hey, you know, is it because, you know, Thompson has such a great arsenal of weapons? Woodley was worried. Now you've got a guy that you know, only really has the ground game. Again, a very great ground game, but didn't really do very much. So Woodley goes out there and gets that decision victory, but to me, it didn't really show much of the great Tyron Woodley that he has been in the past. So he goes out there and gets that victory against Demian Maia. Then 2 fights ago, he fought Darren Till. And this was a fight here where I was all over Woodley in this spot. I really liked Woodley. It was a spot where I just didn't like Till at this point in his career, where he was. He almost didn't sound like he was even ready for that next level up when he got the opportunity to fight Woodley. And this was another very awkward fight again, where you've got two guys that do have striking. Definitely it's, you haven't really seen Woodley utilize that ground game, so it's not like Till should be worried about the ground game because it's something that Woodley most of the time doesn't do, more defensive, defensive takedowns, and then that's it. That's kind of the way that he works, looking for the big strikes. But in this fight here, the first round, Till threw 4 strikes. So, to me, again, you're looking at Woodley and you're saying, what are you worried about? Woodley landed some shots and pressured a little bit, and definitely Till was a lot more held back than I think that he should have been. But, throwing 4 strikes in the first round of a title fight, showed a lot that, one, Woodley didn't capitalize right away on it, but he kind of held back. And then you've got Till, who didn't really throw much. So, again, another awkward first round. Going into that second round, there is when Till looked to push forward, but he telegraphed his big left hand. Woodley landed a shot, dropped him, and pretty much in that entire second round was all Woodley, ground and pound, smashing him down, really put on a big beatdown on Till, gets the submission victory in the end of that second round. He goes out there and gets that victory. So, and then most recently, he fought title match against Kamaru Usman. This was a fight here where I really didn't like what I saw when you're talking about how Woodley looked going into this fight. Now, I'm very big on watching weigh-ins, watching the training, watching leading up to it. I think that definitely helps your capping. And this was a spot where I saw Woodley when he took his shirt off at the weigh-in. I thought he looked drained. I thought that he didn't have, you go back to when he fought guys like Robbie Lawler, he was an absolute monster, and you've kind of seen his body change to, he's definitely in good shape. He's not some fat slob, but he definitely is not that monster that he used to be. And in this spot here, pretty much Usman muscled him around the entire fight. It was a 5-round absolute beatdown of Tyron Woodley. There was nothing that he did. Even the it was definitely wrestler versus wrestler, and that was their big thing. Hey, Woodley was kind of talking about how important the wrestling's going to be in this spot and how he's the better wrestler, and Usman saying the same thing. He's the better wrestler. And without a doubt, Usman just, basically ragdolled him the entire fight, had top control for pretty much the entire time. But a thing that was, again, concerning about Woodley is the fact that Usman does not really have the greatest striking. He has very simplistic striking. I definitely think he's got a little bit of power in there, but it was nothing really that creative that he was doing that was really, again, pushing Woodley back against the cage, taking steps back, having his heel up against the cage, and then looking to strike. And then a guy like Usman, that's beautiful for him. He can go right in, get a body lock, look to ragdoll him down, get positioning, look to, grapple a little bit. And that was just, again, he did not throw the shots to really push off Usman. And then even later in that fight, again, Woodley, who is known for cardio, was showed, again, it was a lot of wrestling, there was a lot going on there, but he showed not cardio. He showed in that 3rd, 4th, and 5th round, he was breathing heavy. Usman definitely has great cardio. It was almost impressive how he really just looked like he was fresh to go in that 4th round and so on. So, again, concerning what's going on with Woodley there, but Woodley gets just absolutely beaten up. He loses that fight. Usman becomes the champion. So there you have it there on the Woodley side. Now we're going to talk about Gilbert Burns, who's plus 154. 3 fights ago, he fought Alexei Konchenko. And Konchenko here, this was a fight where Konchenko's coming up, guy who was, coming to UFC, undefeated, had some hype behind him. But his spot here, this was that the striking of Konchenko, very smooth, very technical guy, low volume guy, but very technical, has some strength. And I thought Gilbert Burns fought really, really well in this spot. And he landed some big shots. He pressured Konchenko around. Konchenko is another guy, got some good boxing, but Burns looked really sharp. The fact that he is known for, again, he's a grappler. He's got the, he's a BJJ guy. He's got good jiu-jitsu. But he has really evolved his striking. And I thought that is something that was missing for certain people. You go back to someone like Demian Maia, who pretty much never evolved his striking. Very 1-2 combinations. You've got somebody like Burns who's showing his athleticism. He's showing that he's got strength from the outside. He's showing that he's utilizing all of his tools. So in this spot here, I mean, it showed again, he was ragdolling, another, throwing down Alexei a couple times, getting top control, again, showing a versatility that he can level change. And again, when you're using the level changing and you're fighting a guy that pretty much wants to stand, if you just start to if you start to shoot, even half shoot and not even get the takedown, just getting them thinking starts to have them worry about that. And of course, their guard goes down. It opens up opportunities for Burns in this spot, and Burns looked great overall. I thought he had a great showing there. He ends up getting decision victory against Konchenko. 2 fights ago, he fought Gunnar Nelson. Not going to get into this one too much. Grappler versus grappler again. I thought, again, Gunnar Nelson, another guy who's definitely elevated his striking, another guy who's mostly known for his ground game. Thought that, again, Gilbert Burns fought well. For a guy that, I'm actually kind of high on Gunnar Nelson. I think that he can, if he keeps kind of moving forward, I think he's going to be pretty impressive. But this was a good spot again. Close 2 first rounds overall. Very close first 2 rounds. But the striking of Burns looked great again. He had some good, the shots that Gunnar was coming in on, he was able to kind of get out of those. And Gunnar, again, has great grappling. But he goes out there. Burns gets that decision victory. And then most recently, he fought Demian Maia. And this is another grappler versus grappler situation. Not going to dive into this one too much because it was very quick. But this is a spot here where Burns, they started grappling a little bit. Burns lands a big shot, ground and pounds him, puts him away. It's a first round TKO for Gilbert Burns. So there you have it on the last 3 fights for each fighter. So with that all being said, you've got somebody like Woodley, you've got the wrestling, there's without a doubt he's a strong wrestler. You've seen him with power. He's definitely been able to land some big shots, hurt guys, put guys away more kind of a couple years ago than more recently. There's been the layoff, which also was a big issue here that he's, where his age is, also the layoff. That's, and then again, he's the kind of guy that's starting to look outside the cage. He's got music. Not very good music, but he's got music. He's looking to do acting. So those are the kind of things that I definitely think takes away from certain things in the cage, overall. And you've got a guy like Burns who wants the spot, who's a younger guy looking, now hitting a stride, got a couple wins, fought many more times in the last year since Woodley has. And again, the big thing, the situation, how this will all transpire, that I believe a big path to victory for Burns here, up against the cage. And you've got a guy like Woodley who's going to be up against the cage, and you've got somebody like Gilbert Burns. And a lot of people, I feel, are not talking about this particular thing that I'm about to talk about, is the credentials of Gilbert Burns and his grappling. And yes, he's got great grappling, but he's a 4-time world jiu-jitsu champion. And he has continually evolved. He has looked impressive. And the fact that he has those credentials against a lot of these guys, you saw what he did against Konchenko, Gunnar Nelson, who's right up there with the ground game. You've got Maia up there with the ground game. This is a position here where I actually think that, Burns is going to have a better ground game than Woodley. And just the way that Woodley is, he's probably going to look more to fend it off than look for the takedowns or look to actually take down Burns. I don't think that he wants to be in that spot. So standing, when toe-to-toe standing, I actually like Burns. I think Burns has more weapons than Woodley in this spot at this point. And the volume of striking, again, we've talked about it consistently when we're looking back over the last 5 fights for Woodley against the 2 against Stephen Thompson, Maia, Till, and Usman. There is just completely low amounts of striking from Woodley. So not only is he backing up, but he's allowing to get in the body lock. He's allowing guys to dictate the pace of the fight. He's allowing guys to get on top of him. And that just is a very tough, you're basically kind of putting yourself in a hole in those spots and being walked down by guys like Demian Maia, who again doesn't have the striking. If you're going to be walked down, it's mostly a volume. You're backing up, you're trying to circle, but when the guy's not doing much and just pretty much just walking forward, that's not good. And you've got a guy like Burns. Again, I love the level changing kicks that he throws. He's got good leg kicks, good body kicks, good striking. He hides and disguises a lot of his takedowns behind good combinations, so he's not just shooting naked and not having anything there. So I think this is a great spot. The only thing that I worry about with Burns is his cardio. Can he last those 5 rounds? Now, we've seen Woodley has already at this point kind of started to tilt a little bit further down in the cardio area, but the sloppy striking at points and the wildness of Gilbert Burns. Gilbert Burns has power. I mean, you've seen that he's got power, but can he consistently move forward for 5 rounds, if it goes that far, against somebody like Woodley? So in this spot here, I like Gilbert Burns. I think Gilbert Burns at the plus money here. I think that you could actually maybe even wait. It depends. I did put, and again, I tier my bets here, and, people are asking me, what do you bet on your free plays and everything? I have a video that, you can check it on my channel. But again, when I have an allotted amount of money per event, that's how I bankroll mine. Each event, I have a specific amount of money. I put 80, 75%, 80% of that allotted amount on my client plays. Those are my plays, and my stronger plays, the plays I like the most. And then these, I'm sprinkling in the other 20% of my allotted amount of money for that event. I'm doing my free plays, I'm parlaying, I'm looking for value plays. So this is one of those particular spots where I'm going to be putting in a bet within that 20% of my money, as this is one of the plays of the few that I will be placing bets, because this is worth it. So to me here, I'm sprinkling some money on Gilbert Burns. I think that this is a spot where the public will probably be betting Woodley even more. And I think that the line actually has moved up. I could see it moving up even more because Woodley is the known name, the past champion. Not many people know about Gilbert Burns. Of course, the casual people may not, or people that are just getting into the market and betting may not, but obviously more hardcore fans are going to know Gilbert Burns. But I think this is a good spot for Burns here. I think that he can go out there, put the pressure on, get inside, land a lot of shots. His volume is good. So for me here, I will be betting Gilbert Burns in the main event. And the last one I'm going to go over, and again, I wish I had the Holland fight. That would have been 3 fights. I would have kind of kept that first one a little bit shorter and got into this one. But we're going to talk about Roosevelt Roberts versus Brock Weaver here. And I'm not going to dive into the last 3 fights too much. I'm not going to get into it. Kind of going to shoot this one pretty quickly. But overall here, I mean, you've got Roberts right now. He's and again, roughly, depending on what book you're shopping at, he's a minus 320. And then you've got Brock Weaver, who's a plus 260. Now, you've got Brock Weaver on the one side. Weaver is a product of Dana White's Contender Series. His first fight in Dana White's Contender Series, he fought Vargas. He fought Smith. And Smith, he fought Devin Smith. It was a good fight, but it was one where pretty much Smith laid on him, didn't allow much to happen. I believe maybe he had broke his hand, so he wasn't able to strike, and he had to kind of grapple on him. It was kind of an ugly fight, so not much really break down there. It did show that possibly he has a little bit of vulnerability in the clinch, but in that spot there, Weaver did get the victory. He goes on his first fight in the UFC against Vargas, an illegal knee when he was down in the first round. So tough to really break down Weaver. But when you do see him in those certain spots, I thought he looked pretty sharp. I thought in spots where he was able to actually have some space, shoot from work from the outside, I thought his boxing was pretty good. He had a little bit, a decent amount of takedown defense a little bit there. So I thought he looked pretty good there where he was for what you can really get on him. And then on the other side, you've got Roberts. And Roberts here, you know what, this guy definitely has shown a lot in a short time. And, I'm not going to dive into it. He's shown that, he's lost 1 fight recently in the UFC. He had some tough fights going on there, and kind of not really, again, I don't really feel like diving into that too much. But talking about these 2 fighters overall and really what they bring to the table. The one thing with Roberts here is he's got great boxing also. I mean, he definitely is a rangy fighter. He stands from the outside, good combinations. I think that, his footwork is actually pretty good too. And he's the kind of guy that, and again, I always use Amanda Nunes as a way to kind of talk about where somebody and how they throw a punch, because Amanda Nunes definitely doesn't have the longest arms, but she is a kind of person that can throw a punch and be fully extended and land, and it's a hard punch. Where a lot of guys need to be inside, the Tyson-esque, kind of hooking, getting that power behind it. Roberts pretty much is pretty good on the range. He's very good at extending his whole arm, still having power behind it. That's something that I think is very good, but he's shown vulnerability on the takedowns. Now, that's not something that Weaver is going to really be diving for. I think this is more going to be a standing matchup overall. But if you look at it also, that Roberts has good cardio. So he's got the good cardio. He definitely has, some boxing there. He's shown that he could be taken down in certain spots. And then the other side, again, you've got Weaver, who's also got good boxing. So in this spot here, I think the line is off, in my opinion. I think this is more of a value play than anything. Should Roberts go out there and get this victory? I think that it definitely tilts his way a little bit. But in a spot here where you've got 2 guys that are on the newer side of the UFC, coming up, Brock Weaver is a tough kid. He has just been dealt some pretty bad hands there with the illegal knee and kind of an awkward fight that he had in Dana White's Contender Series. I think the plus 260 is actually pretty good. I don't think that he's a plus 260 fighter in this spot. Again, Roberts is a great fighter. I think he's got a lot of great things going on with him, but I think he's susceptible to getting into a firefight, getting into a toe-to-toe fight against Weaver, and Weaver just needs to land a couple big shots, get inside on him. I like the plus money here. Again, I'm not going to break this one down as much, kind of just going to dive into my play, and I think that Weaver is a nice little spot here. Again, not saying to hammer this line. I'm not saying to go out there and you know, drop your bankroll on it. Here, I'm saying this is a great spot to put a value play on, loop them in a parlay if you're looking to get some leverage on this a little bit. But I think the plus 260, somewhere in there, even plus 250. I've seen one at plus 275. I think that's a good spot. I think this is a lot tighter of a fight than the way that this market has put this line at. So those are my 2 free plays for UFC on ESPN 9. We've got Gilbert Burns plus 154. We've got Brock Weaver at plus 260. Again, I got 2 packages up on Wagertalk. I have a 5% play up on Wagertalk now. That's going to be one where it's backed by 150% wager bucks guarantee. You'll get that back. Also, I have 2 plays on one package. It's the plus money package. One of the plays is going to be a plus money play. And yes, they're all 3 are 3 different fights. So you're not going to get the 5% in the other package. 2 different packages because we're running the promo on the 5%. So if you're into that, get involved. Take a look. Definitely leave comments down below. I appreciate everybody again who's commenting, liking, following, subscribing, all those great things. It's helping the channel grow. It's helping overall just more people involved in the sports betting world when it comes to UFC. This is our time to shine here because there's nothing else going on. People are doing Korean baseball and, you know, and all this other garbage that they know nothing about. So we're going to keep doing our thing, keep making money here. Definitely give it a thumbs up if you like this content. Hopefully you do, and hopefully we're all making money. And this is Kyle Anthony's UFC Betting Show, and I'll see you Sunday on the Bet Review.